Happy Friday, everybody, and it is a pretty happy Friday. The Bitcoin miners are rallying, the alts are rallying, Bitcoin is breaking out too. In this video, we're going to talk about the spot Bitcoin ETFs. We're going to talk about XRP. A lot has been going on with it. We're also going to look at Bitcoin dominance on the chart. Something important just happened. I do think we're approaching alt season. This is the time for the alts to shine. Now, first off, let's look at this Bitcoin ETF news. The Bitcoin ETFs bounced back with $1.38 billion worth of inflows in only 2 days. This broke our 4-day outflow streak. We now had 2 days in a row of good inflows. January 16 saw $625 million worth of inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs, with BlackRock's IBIT taking the majority of that. And the previous day was $755 million of inflows, bringing this 2-day inflow to that $1.38 billion, overpowering the 4 days of outflows, which totaled $1.22 billion. Total net assets of these funds now is $114 billion, or almost 6% of Bitcoin's market cap. This year, in 2025, we will see the Bitcoin ETFs holding 10% of Bitcoin's total supply. And in reality, it's more than that when you think of the coins that are locked up, that the coins that are unable to ever be touched again, it'll probably be closer to 15 or 20%. This isn't ending. Where are they in 5 years? Where are we in 10 years? You need to get some Bitcoin before they take it all. Ethereum also saw some nice inflows. They saw 3 days in a row of inflows. And Ether ETFs now total $12 billion. Much smaller than Bitcoin. Keep in mind, this is an altcoin, of course, it's going to be smaller. But also consider these ETFs were approved later in 2024 compared to Bitcoin. And we're finally just reaching that point where the grayscale selling has been pretty much diminished. Things are looking better for the Ethereum ETFs. Now, I do want to pull up Bitcoin's price real quick, and then we'll get into some more articles. You can see that we took out this previous high. And that's one thing I mentioned in my last video. We wanted to see a new higher high from this. Next, all we need to do is take out our all-time high. It's very close. We did break our downtrend here, and we are back above the 50 MA, and we played out our beautiful W pattern, or you could call it a cup and handle, either way. The Heikin-Ashi candles on the daily are back green, which is a positive, and weekly too, we are back green after a period of some red. Monthly on Heikin-Ashi's green as well. This is just what Bitcoin needed. Now, do we find the all-time high as resistance? I do think there's a possibility. Keep in mind, we are approaching the Fed meeting at the end of January, also PCE. The good thing is PPI and CPI did come in favorable. So there is some positive expectation from the Fed meeting, although the market isn't expecting a cut. The market is expecting a more optimistic Fed because of recent inflationary data. Be that as it may, we aren't getting another rate cut yet. And honestly, what I'd like to see for Bitcoin is some good consolidation here before a nice breakout. Establish a good support, establish a good base. Don't just keep running, keep ripping, getting more and more overbought on these smaller time frames like the 1 hour, the 4 hour. We are already overbought. I would like to see a little consolidation. That would be very healthy. And in reality, around these prices, we haven't really got much consolidation. It would be nice to consolidate for a bit up here above this yellow line. We have consolidated under it, but never really above it. The 200 MA is slowly but surely rising. It is getting towards $75,000 now. The 50 MA is starting to curl up now because of our recent moves. I do think Bitcoin is setting up to break all-time highs, but perhaps it comes after January. I'm not entirely convinced that we just keep pumping from here, but hey, I'll take it if we do. Now, I also want to talk about XRP. XRP volume overtakes Bitcoin on Coinbase. However, on Binance, this isn't the case. But just look at this volume by market pair. XRP, huge amount of volume. More than Bitcoin. That's pretty crazy. And this highlights the growing focus of XRP by investors. US investors specifically, because it's on Coinbase. Some of this could be attributed to what we were talking about yesterday with XRP. They're cozying up with the president, having dinner with him and stuff like that. There's also speculation of a spot XRP ETF, and there's also talks of a Litecoin ETF as a side note. But XRP has been going absolutely insane. It is way overdue. Last cycle it didn't do very well. The SEC was pretty much attacking it, but things have been looking better. We have Gary Gensler on his way out, and the number of unique addresses holding at least $100,000 worth of XRP has increased to 108,500 addresses. Now, looking at XRP, you can see that it has clearly been pumping a lot. It did use its 50 MA as a support. It rode right on it, kind of like Bitcoin did last cycle. Not this cycle, though. Remember, we broke our 50 MA for Bitcoin recently. We are now back above it, though. But anyways, as for XRP, that 50 MA, if we pull back, it'll be an important place to test. I would like to see XRP start establishing a support between this 350 area and $3. If we can establish support above our previous peaks here, and under our previous all-time high, which we did slightly break, but it didn't sustain it yet. It would be fantastic to see some established support right in this area above our previous peak here and under our all-time high. back in 2018. One thing you want to do is keep an eye on the RSI and the price. If the RSI doesn't come over this level on overbought, we'd be looking at a divergence, meaning the price has been rising, but the RSI hasn't. Maybe the RSI stops there, maybe it goes higher, and this bearish RSI divergence would be invalidated. Maybe the market doesn't care about it. Sometimes bearish and bullish divergences get ignored. But you know, that is one thing I am watching. If we start finding resistance and cooling down on the RSI, you know, this is a bearish divergence. Could mean that we're due to cool down a bit. I personally think if you want to get into the alts, it's still a good time to do so. I think DCAing over the next 3 months or so is still okay. Now DCAing over 6 months to a year, that gets a little more risky, but that's up to you. Following the cycle, we wanted to pack our bags before alt season. I do think alt season is here. I do think things are going to keep pumping for the alts. But keep in mind, in some cases, we are overbought. That doesn't mean we don't go further after a little bit more consolidation, after a little more cooling down. And maybe the market wants to just keep pumping these. But you know, this is why you get in during the bear market, during crypto winter, during the beginning of things. Because if you're not in now, you start seeing these things happen and then you start getting FOMO. This is not what you want to do. You don't want to start buying something like XRP as it's breaking these all-time highs. You wanted to buy it when it was down here at 50-60 cents. Now you have retail wondering about it at $3 after it's done like a 10x. If you're wanting to get in because the price has risen so much, maybe that's the wrong reason. Just keep that in mind. But I do personally expect XRP to go higher. I do think there's an alt that's going to do very well this cycle. And one thing I'm watching just in general for the alts and Bitcoin is Bitcoin dominance. We were riding this very, very consistent pattern before we broke under it, and now it kind of became a resistance. We are still under it now. And something that I wanted to mention to you guys that's very telling in a way is this is our first death cross. We just recently had a death cross. I don't think these are flipping back. Personally, I do think Bitcoin dominance will head down while Bitcoin price rises. How does that make sense? Because alts will outperform Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up 5% and the alts go up 10%, then Bitcoin dominance would come down even though Bitcoin is going higher in price. It's that alts are outperforming it. Bitcoin dominance coming down doesn't mean I'm bearish on Bitcoin. In fact, it means I'm bullish on Bitcoin because the alts aren't going to go up without Bitcoin support. Be that as it may, Bitcoin dominance with alts outperforming means that Bitcoin dominance will come down. That doesn't mean Bitcoin won't do good in the rest of 2025. It just means a lot of the altcoins will outperform, specifically the top 50. Now you can see something similar last cycle. We were riding this pattern consistently before it became a resistance. This is a little bit different, you can tell, but still you can see the similarities. It did have its death cross back here in January 2020, coming down, trying to head back up, a final death cross again. There was multiple death crosses on this one. I think this isn't going to be as choppy. I think it's going to be pretty clear, and we're going to see that death cross, and that death cross marks us heading lower, which means alts heading higher, Bitcoin heading higher, Bitcoin dominance heading lower. That's basically what we want to see. We want to see this coming down. But right now we are in this pattern. We're either going to break to the upside or break to the downside. There is some consolidation going on. The market is going to make its mind up in a matter of days, in my opinion. And I do think the market is going to choose alt season. But how are you guys feeling on a day like this? This is just the start of 2025. Things are going to continue to be exciting. Sure, we'll get our red days. Sure, we'll get our pullbacks. But this is why we're in Bitcoin. This is why we loaded up in 2022 and 2023 during crypto winter. Getting out now, in my opinion, would be like leaving before we're even at our destination. While we have picked up some perks along the way, while we have made some gains along the way, there are still a lot more gains to be had. But what say you? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think alt season isn't going to happen because we're oversaturated with coins this time around? Or do you think alt season will be very selective, with only some select alts rallying while others fail? Always interested in your thoughts and opinions, guys. Thanks as always for watching. Hopefully you have a good weekend, and I'll see you soon.